All right, let's dive into a book that's been making waves and sparking debate since it first came out way back in 1997, The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. Now, this thing is written as a kind of guide for what Deida calls a newly evolving man who's trying to figure out all the big stuff: work, relationships, passion, the whole deal.
So the book kicks off by asking a really provocative question. We've made these huge strides in social and economic equality, which is amazing. But why is it that so many modern couples feel like the spark, the actual sexual passion, is just fizzling out? The book suggests that maybe, just maybe, in leveling the playing field, we've accidentally become too similar.
So to get to the bottom of this, Deida lays out what he calls 3 evolutionary stages. First, you've got the old-school macho jerk. Then came the reaction to that guy, the sensitive wimp. But Deida argues there's a third stage we should be aiming for, the superior man, who's managed to integrate both his masculine and feminine sides and can live from his deepest, most authentic core.
To really get what this book is all about, we're going to break it down into 5 key ideas, moving beyond those old stereotypes, uncovering what he calls the secret of sexual polarity, why purpose is so critical, understanding feminine energy, and finally how this all comes together in the dance of intimacy.
All right, let's jump right into that first theme and see how the book actually diagnoses the problem it sees in today's relationships.
So, Derrida's take is that this big cultural push towards gender similarity has created a new kind of problem. He says he saw it all the time in his work, men becoming too much like wimps and women becoming what he calls ballbusters. And it's this flattening out, this neutralization, he claims, that's killing the passion. Okay, so if that's the problem he's pointing to, what's his solution? Well, it all comes down to this core concept he calls sexual polarity.
Think of it like a battery, right? Or magnets. The idea here is that for that spark of sexual attraction to really fly, you need 2 different poles, a masculine and a feminine essence. He argues that when partners become too alike, that energetic charge just disappears. And when that goes, so does the passion.
In this slide, I think really nails the core difference he's talking about. Deida suggests that, at its heart, the masculine essence is all about mission, about the search for freedom. On the other hand, he says the feminine essence is all about the flow of love and the search for connection, 2 very different priorities. And that idea of mission leads us straight to the first pillar of what he calls the superior man's life, his purpose.
Now, this is one of the book's most central and, honestly, most controversial ideas. For a man with a masculine core, his deepest purpose has to be priority number 1. Deida basically says that if he puts his relationship first, he weakens himself and loses his direction, which ironically ends up damaging the very relationship he's trying so hard to protect.
So, what this really boils down to is deep internal work, right? It means knowing your edge, that spot right outside your comfort zone where all the growth happens, and actually living there. It's about taking full responsibility for where you're going in life and understanding this is a challenge that never really ends.
Okay, so we've talked about purpose. Now let's get into the second pillar, how the book advises a man to interact with what it calls the feminine essence. So the first thing he says is, stop trying to analyze a woman's moods like there's some kind of math problem you can solve. He calls this a classic masculine approach and says it usually fails because, in his view, feminine energy is a lot more like the weather. It's always changing, and it's not about one single fixable thing. So if he's not supposed to fix it, what is he supposed to do? Well, the book's answer is that his real gift is to meet her moods with his presence, with his love. The goal isn't to solve her, but to create this unwavering space of love that allows her to open her own heart. And this is a really fascinating point the book makes about communication. The idea here is that feminine speech is often a direct expression of a feeling in that exact moment, not necessarily a statement of some permanent fact. And according to Derrida, that's why moods and statements can seem to shift so quickly. All right, and this leads us to our final section, where all these different pieces start to click together in what Deida calls the dance of an intimate relationship. So, the book reframes a woman's complaints or emotional challenges not as attacks, but as tests. He's arguing that it's an unconscious way for the feminine to feel out if her partner is truly solid and grounded in his purpose. She's trying to feel his unshakable core. So if we put it all together, the book's path to creating that passion comes down to 3 key things. First, you have to discover your deepest purpose. Second, you have to constantly live just beyond your comfort zone, at your edge. And third, you have to give your unique gifts to the world and to your partner fully and without holding back. Ultimately, The Way of the Superior Man presents this framework that's very much a product of its time, 1997, built on these ideas of masculine and feminine essences. And it leaves us with a really big question for today. In a world where identity is so much more fluid, is this kind of polarity really the key to lasting passion?